Paris, one of the greatest cities on earth. A place of lights, cathedrals, and millions of people.
But 1200 years ago, this was Paris? No Eiffel Tower.
Paris, 12 million people, the most visited city on earth. Stop. Erase it.
Wind just 1200 years a Tomand, and every single light you see right now goes completely, utterly dark.
Today, Paris is one of the most breathtaking, most visited cities on the entire face of this earth. No grand boulevards, no palaces, no cafes, just a scared, broken, muddy river island, barely big enough to hold a few thousand souls. This was the Paris of 800 AD. Living here weren't romantics or philosophers. They were survivors, just fighting to make it through one more winter.
And yet, hidden inside this forgotten, struggling little town.
On Christmas Day, 800 AD, the most powerful man in the Western world was crowned Holy Roman Emperor. Empire stretched across half of Europe. But when he chose his capital city, Paris didn't even make the list.
The same era that produced Charlemagne's marble halls also produced Paris's crumbling mud.
No scholars, no great thinkers called this place home. Just fishermen, farmers, and frightened families trying to survive. Surrounded by water on all sides, this tiny island was Paris. Not a city. 845, something appeared on the Seine that would make every single person in Paris wish they had.
120 Viking longships, Hoon, thousands of warriors, Keys, and they were heading directly, unmistakably, for Paris.
They were Vikings. And in the 9th century, if they were coming to your town, there was no good version of what happened next.
No real army, no walls strong enough to matter. The king's men gathered and realized they had exactly one option left.
£1,000 of silver. That was the price of Paris's survival, paid in defeat, in silence, in complete and total humiliation. The Vikings took their silver and left. Paris still stood. But everyone who lived there knew home. One room, one hearth, one window, an entire family's world contained inside 4 mud walls and a rotting thatched roof.
Had grain, fish if the river was generous, and in a bad year then nothing at all, and you prayed the children made it to spring.
The sun was even up, the work had already begun, Hent, and it would not stop until the dark came back around and swallowed everything whole. Fell in 800 AD Paris, the dark wasn't poetic, it was absolute. And whatever was out there in it, you stayed inside and prayed. Footnotes of history, Fez. These were the people who kept the fire burning, so that one day, something magnificent could grow from the ash. The empire collapsed in 476 AD. It didn't just take the government down with it. It took the roads, the courts, the schools, and the order.
Everything else collapsed. One institution remained standing, remained organized, remained literate, the Christian Church.
Saint-Denis Abbey, just north of the island, became the burial ground of Frankish kings. The church was doctor, teacher, judge, and historian, all in one. And every single night in Tolovians, while the darkness pressed in from all sides and sides, Paris was anything, the Seine River was already there. Ancient, powerful, patient, waiting for someone smart enough to use. 800 AD weren't scenery, they were highways. The only reliable way to move goods, people, and power across a broken landscape. To attack Paris, you had to cross water, twice. That island wasn't chosen by accident. It was the most...
Slowly, as almost invisibly assessed, the Seine began doing what rivers always do. It started pulling trade.
Empires rise and fall. Kings die and are forgotten. But a river didn't care that Paris was small and scared and forgotten. It just kept flowing pool. And eventually, the world caught up. In the same year that Paris huddled in the dark with 20,000 people, Baghdad was home to over 1 million. While Paris's monks struggled to keep a single candle of literacy alive, Baghdad's House of Wisdom held the collective. This was the world in 800 AD, Flea, not the one European textbooks usually describe. The center of farmer eating thin porridge in the gray Paris cold had no idea that on the other side of the world, someone was living in what we would call the future. At night glowed like a fallen constellation. Paris at night was 4 torches and a prayer. That was the real world of 800 AD. History doesn't move in one direction, and it doesn't belong to one people. In 800 AD, every great thing that has ever existed in this world, every city, every civilization, every decade, stone by stone decade, Paris began doing what Paris had always been positioned to do. It started to happen overnight. It didn't happen in 1 century. But history is not in a hurry, and Paris, it turned out, had all the time in the world. 300 years after the mud and the cold and the fear, Paris built Notre Dame, and the world turned to look. From 20,000 frightened people on a river island to the city of light that the whole world comes to see. Saw what was coming. He didn't need to. He just had to hold on Fid, and hold on he did. And that was enough. For 500 years, Rome had held the Western world together. And then, in 470, when Rome fell, Europe didn't become one new thing. It shattered into hundreds of small, competing, violent. Roman roads had connected a continent for centuries. After the fall, no one maintained them.
A vacuum Rome left behind. Whoever had the most warriors made the rules. Law was replaced by strength. Courts were replaced by sword.
Charlemagne. Long before the Vikings, there was just a river, an island, and a handful of people who decided this particular bend in the water was worth staying for. 2,000 years before the Eiffel Tower, a Celtic tribe called the were already living on that island.
They weren't building empires. They weren't writing philosophy. They were fishing, trading, living so.
52 BC, Julius Caesar's legions arrived at the Seine, and the Paris' quiet island life ended. Rome built a proper city on the island. Forums, baths, an amphitheater. For a few centuries, Paris was... The Romans had been gone for 300 years, but their ruins were still there, scattered across the island. Every civilization builds on the bones of the one before it. Paris in 800 AD was literally living on... It never fully died, even in the darkest centuries. Along the Seine, small markets kept forming.
The deal made on that riverbank was a small act of civilization, proof that even in the broken world of 800 AD, people were still trying to build something.
2 wooden bridges connected the island to the outside world. Crude, creaking, barely reliable, but without them that passed through Paris on the Seine was a vote for this location, proof that the river's geography made this bend in the water impossible to ignore.
Accounting, inventory, record-keeping are the invisible foundations of a city.
When the sun went down in 800 AD, Paris ceased to exist in any meaningful way. Wake most nights, listening to the river, to the wind, to whatever was out there in the dark.